I hear you.
Okay.
Okay, so it says we're live. YouTube page. Here we go. Here we go. I swear, every time we use this fairly frequently, maybe a month or so ago. But anyway, seems like every time we use this, they've changed something. Let me make sure that this URL works before I send it to Geek Out Huntsville.
Get Tyler on here also.
Okay, so it says we're live. Okay.
YouTube. YouTube.
Here we go. Here we go. Yeah.
Did you mute it? You muted YouTube, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Otherwise, we're gonna hear all of us.
So, okay. It was for a second. Oh, okay. All right, let me invite Tyler. Where did you send me his address?
To the email. Or to the chat on your other page.
TBE. Okay. Tyler. Okay. Okay, he just got it. All right, unless we got him. Here he is. Let me grab his headphones. Oh, but Darren, you can hear me fine. It's coming through. There's no like echo or anything when you talk.
No.
Okay.
No, we're good. Your video is a little laggy, but I don't know. There's nothing really that you can do on your end to fix that.
Well, what we can do is have this whole thing and drive through gigabit.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
I was in Chattanooga last night and I was using
Aw.
like their gigabit. It's oh my god.
All of the downloads. Literally download the internet.
It was like what do we get? Like it was like 200 megabits a second, and that was at a hotel
Mm-hmm.
where they had to like kind of downgrade it a little bit. Okay, we're ready to go. I got up the doc with everything we want to go over. Now, did you have any questions for him? I was just going to kind of
No, no.
outline
I'm
up.
here to, I mean, your questions look good, so.
I want to keep this about a half hour, 45 minutes because I don't want to be like super in depth. I want it to be like easily digestible by people who could
Mhm.
hear this and be influenced by it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if it goes good and there's a good response, we might do
Hey,
something.
Tyler, volume up a lot. I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was there. We see you, Tyler, but we can't hear you at all. Can you hear him, Sarah?
He said just a second. I
Okay.
can barely hear him, but it's something.
That's okay. We got 10
Nope.
minutes.
Nope. Up more.
Yeah, crank it all the way up, buddy.
Oh, I hear something now.
Right now?
There's a lot of background noise, but yeah.
It sounds like you got silent.
Let's see.
That's definitely right, but it sounds like there's like a vacuum cleaner or something going on there.
Okay.
Maybe.
Is that any better?
Yeah, there we go. That's better.
A bit better, yeah.
Okay, so hey Tyler, I don't think we've met. I'm Daniel.
Nice to meet you, Daniel.
You too. Terry, how do you two know each other?
Tyler did a bunch of stuff for ChargerCon immediately after you left.
Oh, cool.
After you went and abandoned us. He ran the Extra Life event.
Oh, Tyler, we have met. I remember
Yeah.
doing that now. Yeah, I totally remember that. You were doing that in the auditorium over at the Shelby.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. That was awesome. You did a great job with that.
Thanks.
Are you guys planning on doing that again for the next one?
No.
Well, I'm
Coincide with Extra Life, though.
we'll do it for spring. I don't know about fall coming up, like next fall.
That was really cool. I was very impressed with that. How much money did you guys raise?
We need to do that.
$1,100.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. What were you saying, Taryn?
We need to chat later, Tyler, about ChargerCon because things are getting cray with that.
Very correct.
So.
Okay, so we're going to start about 5 after 3. Tyler, did you get the Google Doc that I put together, just kind of outline what we want to talk about?
Yep, I did. I've got it up along with my own notes that I kind of just detailed out, kind of help keep track of what I'm going to talk about.
Okay, cool. So with this, we wanted to do like a pretty detailed discussion, but not take more than like a half hour, 45 minutes. The reason being is I'm hoping that because I know that some people from AL.com are going to be watching this, and hopefully this might make its way over to the city council and city government. I want to keep it still technical where we talk about the specifics, but also quick and easy enough for it to be digestible, kind of by the layman. So hopefully we can. What I really want to do with this is make some waves and help people understand some of the logistics and some of the specifics, especially considering the news that came out this past week.
Yes.
That was mainly the spur of why we wanted to do this, because me and Taryn were talking about it this past week at work about how I don't know if you had seen the discussion on the Huntsville Reddit, but a lot of people were kind of actually downplaying the news of the past week, saying like, oh, well, my thoughts were this is kind of going to open us up, just to lay out the red carpet for somebody like Comcast to come in and get exclusivity or whatever.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people thought, and I'll save the big spiel for during the podcast, but essentially I think this is too soon to be worried, and I think it's the right first step for any group that doesn't have a clear direction yet. The key to remember is nothing is set in stone. So since nothing is set in stone, I feel like what the city has chosen to do is buy themselves time while actively pursuing the infrastructure growth. So they look like they're doing something, and they are doing something, but they haven't made any deals or signed any contracts, and nobody has any rights to begin doing this unless they can always come in on their own, and say, okay, we want to roll out fiber. But what the city's trying to do is make sure that everybody's covered in an equal way. Is it the right decision? There are some issues there. How I feel personally and how people I've talked to feel about it. But I've got pros and cons for both sides, and kind of some talking points on, why an RFP first and why not just Huntsville Utilities going straight forward with it or another public entity going straight forward.
Before we start, before it's actually a public discussion, have you actually been in contact with the city since they've?
I have. I talked to the mayor and I talked to the business directions leader for the project. His name's Harrison Diamond. Spoke with the mayor too. Also spoke with Jay Stowe, who's the Huntsville Utilities director.
Mm-hmm.
So I meet with them, I talk with them, and kind of discuss things back and forth. Key points to remember is that the utilities, as it stands right now, has no interest and does not even want to really entertain the idea of being a content provider.
So they don't want in any way to do similarly to what Chattanooga has done.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's a lot of infrastructure that they'd have to handle and put basically
It's
a bill
not the
for.
infrastructure even they're worried about. The infrastructure to them is not the scary issue. The scary issue is providing content and then having to market that content when competition comes into the area.
Right.
They don't know how to do that. They've never had to compete. Their customers can either have no power or can have Huntsville utilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're set up perfectly for that. They do fine on that. But when it comes to competition in terms of content providing, because you're not just talking internet, you're talking internet, phone, and TV, which is the typical triple play package you would see, and multiple tiers of speeds. So while they think, yeah, sure, they could do it, they have the capability to do it. It is, once it's done, is it going to continue to make money long enough to make itself profitable? Even though they're a non-profit, publicly owned entity, it still has to make money.
Okay, guys. Let's see. You about ready? Geek Out Huntsville already shared a link. Looks like we got a couple of viewers already.
I need about like 3 to 5 minutes so I can get my thing in a stationary location. So I'll be
That sounded kind of dirty. So Tyler, I guess while we're waiting, what do you got planned for ChargerCon? That's just in a couple of months.
Well, the one to come up in a couple of months, I'm probably just going to go and compete and just play.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Right now I'm living in Louisville.
Oh, you are? Wow.
I'm down there for Thanksgiving week, but I'm in a co-op with General Electric. So
Okay.
I've been in Louisville since August and trying to do all this stuff from Louisville, essentially.
That's insane.
I've done a lot.
Are you sticking around over there? Are you coming back to Huntsville?
Yeah, I'm coming back. I moved
Okay,
back to
your co-op position, yeah.
And then I have an interview this week with Future Designs for a parallel.
Really?
Ain't that funny?
Yeah.
How coincidental. Me and Terrence are there.
Yep.
We both work there right now.
Really?
Yes.
How do you like it?
You'll get a good plug from us.
Is it good? Do I need to like wear
That's
my
compliant.
We can't talk about that on air.
That's compliant.
Live right now.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, so I'm doing that, and I'm looking forward to moving back and really gearing up with Big Fighter Push, especially since the announcement.
Awesome. Okay, well, it's almost exactly 3. Let me make sure I get all my tabs up here so I got all my ducks in a row. So just heads up, I'm going to try to kind of play moderator a little bit and kind of make sure that we keep good time and say, don't hit on any point longer than necessary or whatever. So, yeah, you guys just follow my lead, and if anything comes up that I know about, just send me a text in the chat and let me know.
Sounds good.
I'm trying to rotate myself so I don't have a beam of light in my face.
Aaron, contortion
Or
yourself.
like right behind me.
There you go.
Aaron's practicing his yoga before he gets
He needs to. Okay, you situated there, Terry?
Nice.
Good?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it's exactly 3 o'clock, and for editing purposes, I'll do this here in a minute. So when I get the file later, we'll edit this and put this on a consumable version for everybody to see. But just real quick before we get started, for everybody that's tuning in, I want to thank the guys at Geek Out Huntsville for helping us promote this. And, of course, Taryn and Tyler are here with us. We're going to talk a little bit about this. So we're kind of branding this as a one-off podcast. We may potentially do this in the future if there's more news that comes out about Huntsville becoming a geek city, which that hopefully will happen, so maybe we'll come back around to this at some point. Real quick, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Daniel Horton. I've been in the Huntsville area for about 10 years now. I graduated from UH in 2007, worked at FBI in town, education sort of thing that requires the internet. Tyler, can you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, I'm Tyler England. I'm a student at UAH, currently studying electrical and optical engineering. I'm also the executive director of Launch Fiber Huntsville, which is a coalition initiative that I started in January of 2014 to bring gigabit infrastructure to Huntsville and Madison County.
Very cool. Taryn, can you tell us about yourself? I think some of our viewers know you, but introduce yourself to our new people.
I'm Terrence Fredrickson, also a senior at UAH, studying computer engineering. I also work with Daniel out at Future Designs, and I do a lot of stuff, video streaming and things like that, where gigabit internet is almost necessary at that point. because you need a lot of pipe to move data and move video specifically.
So I'm curious, guys, just kind of a survey question. What kind of speeds are you getting at? What kind of speeds are you getting at home right now?
Well, as far as me, I won't name the service provider, but I am getting 20 down, 2 up, and that's usually on a good day.
Yeah, that's similar to what I'm getting. I'm somewhat happy with my provider, so I'll go ahead and call them out. It's Synology. They're pretty good. They don't have bandwidth caps, so I'm pretty happy with them. How about you, Tara?
I actually just swapped from Synology last year because of just inconsistent service, like dropping down to less than 0.1 megabit per second. So it's pretty bad.
Interesting.
So, but yeah, right now I've got about 20.
Yeah.
Give or take.
So, the reason we're all here today is there was some news that came out this past week. The city of Huntsville is finally moving forward with what they're branding as turning the town into a gig city. Tyler, since you've been way more involved than any of us, can you quickly summarize what happened this past week and what the news was about?
Yeah, so Mayor Tommy Battle had his State of the City address, and in that address he listed off several things that the city is trying to do to continue growing in the right direction. One of those is a new initiative the city is undertaking, which is opening up a request for proposals. That is to say, let private content providers like your Mediacoms, your Comcast, your Knologies come in and propose bids on placing fiber internet in and around Huntsville and Madison County to provide service to commercial and residential areas.
So, what can you? I know you've been involved with this for some time now. Like, how long have you been knee deep in this whole thing? What can you tell us about your background with moving Huntsville forward in this lot?
Well, when I started in January, the only previous experience that Huntsville had with fiber internet was in 2010, and that was a Google Fiber push, where Google Fiber had announced it was looking for cities to move to and install its own gigabit fiber infrastructure. At that time, the city had really pushed for this service. There was a lot of marketing behind it. A lot of big businesses jumped on board to try and get Google to come to Huntsville, and we did not win that. So obviously. So in January of this year, 2014, I started a petition online on change.org that asked the city to investigate bringing gigabit fiber to Huntsville and Madison County, specifically a public infrastructure that was net neutral and could provide content to customers that also would tie into, say, the utilities.
So let's talk for a bit about like what brought us to this point. Like, obviously, this has been a ball that's been moving for some time now. The city is, Tyler, would you say it's fair to say that they're taking this fairly seriously, or is this kind of a political play? What do you think?
When I started, I would say the city, this wasn't on the radar. When I started in January, there was the previous Huntsville Utilities director who was very conservative in his actions on what he wanted to do to change and upgrade their infrastructure, including power, water, gas. In February, their leadership changed, so a new utility director came into power. Once that happened, I got to sit down and meet with him and the mayor in the mayor's office and really kind of say, where do you stand on this? And found out they had been talking about it. This is something that they had had meetings on. They spoke to their legal team to see where they stood on, could they do this? Is this something they had the right to do? They've been talking to different people in the community to see, is this overstepping their boundaries? And it had been a conversation, but no real action had been taken. I kept pushing. I kept, getting people on board, getting businesses on board, going back to the mayor, going back to the utility to say, look, we've got people that want this service, that need this service, and you're losing out on taxpayer dollars. People are leaving this area.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing out.
I think part of the issue is that we're seeing what's happening just an hour and a half away from us in Chattanooga, where they have essentially a municipality-provided service that isn't provided by, a company like Comcast or Knology or whatever. And they've kind of become a thing that most of the telecommunications companies in North America are literally afraid of right now. They don't want to see that happen across the rest of the country. I know that a lot of guys like us are seeing that and thinking like, why aren't we doing that? Of course, we may not necessarily understand a lot of the business or politics that comes into play. But one thing that I wanted to just throw out to our panel real quick, Taryn, we'll start with you. Like, what is holding us back as a city by having, Comcast and Technologies come in and keep us at 20 megabits down like we all seem to be getting? What are we not able to do both, personally and at a business? Like, what could we do better with this great service like Chattanooga has?
I mean, are you talking about like why don't we have Comcast and them just upgrading it, or why don't we have just the better internet in general?
Well, let's start with just the internet speed in general. Like, what is it that we're not able to accomplish that we could accomplish with faster internet like that?
You guys. Hold on. Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
All right, cool. I think my headphones are having a problem. Apple technology.
Like that slow internet.
Yeah. So, I mean, general the area of fiber, it's a lot. Obviously, there's the political loopholes. There's the large scale investment that the city's got to make, and then you've got a lot of backlash that you're going to get from your local ISPs, like Comcast, or not Comcast, but I'm pretty sure for a while. Knology had some exclusivity rights in Madison City, for example. They will buy exclusivity rights to different apartment complexes and things of that nature. And so they're literally not able to they're literally not able to have anything else move in because they have these contracts already set up. Tyler can confirm/deny this, right?
Yeah, a big part of that, on top of the exclusivity, is the laws in the state of Alabama. We have a dig once law. So say a developer comes in to build a neighborhood, or a company comes in and builds a business or a factory. Once they've dug the trench to lay utilities to that location and covered it up, you're no longer allowed to unbury those lines and add more or remove them. This really limits utility, or ISPs from coming in and laying their own line, because they don't share cable. If you have a Comcast in an area, Knowledge is not going to run their service over Comcast cable. They're going to run their own cable. And if they're not allowed to dig up the existing trench, then they have to dig their own trench, their own line, bury it, do all the work that's necessary to run an additional cable to that neighborhood, and they're not going to do it. It costs too much money.
So what it sounds like is there's just a lot of laws in general that have been, we won't say where they came from or why they're there, but they're there, and they now prevent a lot of ways for these companies to come in and provide better service.
Historically, yes. Alabama has been very conservative on any kind of internet infrastructure and municipality-based internet. There's not a lot of legal help when it comes to the state level.
Okay.
So, Tyler, let me circle back around to the question I posed to Taryn just a minute ago. Like, what is it that you feel, you've been behind this, so obviously you have, your reasons. Like, what is it that you feel that we could be doing better as a city with this type of faster gigabit internet?
One is growth. When you provide this kind of service to your citizens, it's not just about being able to go and watch YouTube videos at whatever speed and upload and download videos. It provides so many opportunities for small business owners to expand, and any kind of expansion like that is good for the community as a whole, even if you don't use that service. So say I don't need faster internet, I'm fine. But if my city has access to it and the people around me are able to use it for their good, then my quality of life goes up regardless. It brings in more citizens, which is more taxpayer dollars. So, the taxes stay low. You've got a lot of secondary benefits that not a lot of people really recognize at first. And say one day you do want to upgrade, a public infrastructure provides a marketplace for you to shop around, and these ISPs have to compete against each other. And that's a big thing that we don't have right now is competition.
Yeah.
A lot of places in Madison County have one content provider. They have one ISP that they can buy service from.
I think you hit on a really good point there, like about competition. because in areas like Kansas City or Austin, where Google has brought in Google Fiber, like suddenly the AT&Ts and Comcasts of those areas suddenly have deals almost just as good as Google as what they're providing.
I have another thing. I have a friend of mine that lives up in Nashville, and Comcast, they signed up for Comcast because that was like their only provider at the time. But Nashville's on the list of people that's getting Google Fiber, like on the way. And Comcast cut his bill in half and multiplied his speed by 10. So he's getting 150 both directions now from Comcast. So if you want to talk about competition, you can see what it's doing there.
So that brings up another question that I was eventually going to propose to the YouTube, but I'll go ahead and bring it up now since it came up. As far as competition go, Tyler and Taryn pitch in on this too. Does this request for proposal that the city is initiating in January, is it going to, let's just say, for example, some telecommunications company comes in and they get a contract from the city. Does that mean that they get exclusivity to the city, or will there be like competition snuffed out or allowed? How is that going to work, guys?
Wording doesn't say yes or no, from what I saw.
Concerning. I agree.
I'm on board the concerning feeling for this. It looks like right now, and the typical result is that one company comes in and has help from the city in order to build out their infrastructure in accordance to the proposal they laid out. So if a company comes in and says, we want to start by providing access to this area or that area, they get the help from the city, the laws passed, the financial help, whatever other items are listed in the proposal, and then they own that infrastructure. So they then control who has access to use it, which would typically be just them. They have the option to lease out access, but you can do that right now with cable, and that doesn't usually happen. So you kind of see which direction it would lean towards with one company owning it. And the wording that was given in the State of the City address, and what I've heard back, this is what they're looking for right now.
So Tyler, since you've been involved in like the politics of this for some time now, why is there opposition, or at least some type of hesitancy to do what Chattanooga has done in our city?
Well, one, Chattanooga's done a great job in using what was available to them. Chattanooga had a lot of infrastructure in place in a core part of the city that they built off of that they didn't have to install before they got started. They also had a plan of action for their electric grid that required an update to this internet infrastructure for them to be able to achieve. They went to a smart grid system, so their electric grid is able to adapt to power loss, accidents, storms, much faster than a lot of cities. And in doing so, they needed something that had a lot of bandwidth so that these nodes in their electric grid could send back to the utility. Well, the secondary benefit of that was that they had all this extra bandwidth available. So they built this really big pipe because that's just the nature of it, and then said, well, we've got all this extra space, we could sell that as a service. And that's what they did. So not only did they do it as an electric upgrade, so an infrastructure upgrade to their electric services, they're now able to sell content, and that was a big boon for them. As it stands, Huntsville Utility has not decided to do a smart grid of that size as of yet. They haven't announced anything, and I haven't heard any real plans of action other than them trying to kind of talk.
Let's take a step back. When you're talking about content, like I think that's a term that could be ambiguously applied, or have different translations. Like, what is it that you mean when you say content?
Content could be TV, internet, or phone. Sometimes you say ISP, sometimes you say content provider, because typically they mesh. I can buy my phone service, my TV service, and my internet from Comcast. That makes them no longer just an internet service provider, but a content provider. And that's the typical market nowadays, is you don't just come in and provide one of the three services, you provide all of them.
Right, yeah.
Up to all of them. So.
Is that what Chattanooga is doing? Like, I honestly don't know. Are they're all providing like all three of those services?
Yeah, Chattanooga can provide a triple play package. They can do internet on its own, TV on its own, phone on its own, or any combination of the three.
Okay, cool. So Terry, what are your thoughts on all this so far?
Well, I have a question for Tyler, and I want to go back to
Go.
a Reddit thread that was posted about this whole thing. I'm sure Tyler dug through it like in depth.
For
There was
anybody who wants to check that out, where can they find that Reddit thread?
I can link it in our chat. I don't know how to link it.
Tell it. It's reddit.com/r/Huntsville, Alabama. What was the title of it?
It's official gigabit internet is coming to Huntsville. It's down a little bit, but the top comment on here was something that I was more interested in hearing Tyler's thoughts is why aren't we moving more towards what phone services were in the 90s specifically, where the city owned, my understanding, the city owns the main infrastructure and then they lease out the the end user distributor or something, right? Is that, can you expand on that?
Yeah, so that's something that I've been personally pushing forward with, and that's been kind of the vision of Launch Fiber as a whole since I started.
Right.
We really wanted a service that provides, we really wanted the end result to be able to, I can move anywhere in Madison County. No matter where I go, I have at least 2 or 3 options for my internet, my TV, my phone, and it's affordable. So I can get different speeds, I can get what fits me. You know, I'm not locked into whatever is available there. It shouldn't have to be a buying option when you go somewhere. What they're talking about with the phone companies is back in the 90s, phones on copper wire was a cable, was a wire infrastructure that the utility owned. So when they came out and ran power to your home, they also ran phone lines to your home. They then leased the access per mile to the different phone companies that would then send service to your house. So you could go and get an AOL CD from any Walmart or anywhere you wanted to, put that into your computer in 1995, and get on AOL. It didn't matter where you were.
Or play Frisbee.
Exactly. You could do whatever you wanted to because you never had to interact with the utility. You only interacted with the person providing your internet.
Right.
And the person providing your internet then paid the utility for leasing that line. That's what we're really trying to accomplish on my end. We want a public entity that does not provide internet, does not provide TV, does not provide phone. So it keeps them out of that market. What it does provide is the infrastructure and the maintaining of that infrastructure. Then they lease access. Go ahead.
So I guess naturally you would expect that leased access to create competition and low prices and better service.
Yes. You could have anything from lower leasing prices for local content providers. So local ISPs could come back, small service ISPs that provide service in rural areas. And what that organization does, what that public entity does, is an oversight for the lines. It prevents people from coming in and buying up a market and saying, this is ours now, nobody else can have it. It prevents a lack of competition. It also prevents a lack of quality. If you're having to compete, competition breeds innovation, innovation breeds success.
I can give you an example. I was looking through the Huntsville, Alabama subreddit while Taryn had mentioned it a few minutes ago, and one of our users had posted a link to what Xfinity, really Comcast, is doing in the Nashville market. Some of you guys may have heard about this, but I'll go through it real quick. This is verbatim from their website, so this isn't me trying to make it sound scarier than it really is. It says, we'll be launching multiple trial approaches in the this part is me paraphrasing. This part's not. In the Nashville market, we have increased our monthly data usage plan for all Xfinity internet tiers to 300 gigabytes per month, and also offer additional gigabytes in increments, $10 per 50 gigabytes. You can find this thread in the Huntsville, Alabama subreddit, but essentially what Infinity/Comcast is trying to do here is put tiers on home internet in the same way that your cell phone has it. So they're going to have very low gigabyte caps and then sell you additional increments of like $10 a month or something like that. This is the very thing that I think everybody can unanimously agree on that we don't want. This is the kind of service that you're going to get from a monopoly. Anybody who spent any amount of time in the past couple months has heard at least one horror story about Comcast. Going back, when I first read about the request for proposal this past week, my first thought was, oh crap, we're rolling out the red carpet for somebody like Comcast to just come in and get exclusivity to the whole town in the same way that a service provider has exclusivity for, like, say, an apartment complex. Guys, please tell me why I shouldn't be afraid of that.
I guess I'll go first. Let me start by saying I don't work for the city. The city owes me no favors, and I don't have to be their friend and buddy in this. I will say, to preface everything, I think what the city has done to this point is the right way to do it. Okay? To this point. I think that because of a couple main reasons. One, if they come out and say, we're going to build our own fiber internet infrastructure, and that's the first thing you hear, the citizens go, yes, great, fantastic. We don't have to deal with Comcast. We don't have to deal with private industry. The money stays in the community. That's excellent. Well, then what happens is you get a lawsuit. So the city starts working. 3 months down the road, somebody comes in and sues with a legal team that's paid millions of dollars, and work stops. And it stops. And it gets halted. And there are political issues that come to play. And money goes down the drain. And it looks like a loss on the books. And the last thing they want is to go into the red for a project that they were sure was going to succeed and then fails. So what the RFP does, what going out and asking for proposals does for the city is say, hey, tell us what you think you would do. Tell us how you would come in and put on your internet. We're giving you a fair chance to come in and do that. And it buys the city time to keep investigating their own options. Do they want to create a new entity, not put it on Huntsville Utilities, but something, say, like HIMSI? HIMSI is a publicly owned entity that operates like a private business. They work very closely with the city, but they're able to issue their own bonds for debt. So they can come in and say, okay, we need to build a new fire station, or we're going to issue a bond and do that. It gives the city time while gaining more information. There's not a negative to doing RFPs, and it's smart. It really is on the big picture idea. It's smart to buy themselves time while they still investigate what their options are.
So just to clarify, it does not constitute anything like binding or concrete about the future of this project.
Exactly.
Nothing bad. Yeah, nothing is bad until it is stated, here is when we're starting installation, right? That's when you raise your pitchforks and go to I did want to say, and we jumped before I could ask this question, but
yeah, go ahead.
Tyler, what is stopping the city from going towards that phone line strategy? What are the roadblocks? Is it still the legal issues? Is it a lot of things?
I think it's a couple things. One is a lack of pre-existing infrastructure.
Right.
As you both know, Huntsville and Madison County is very sprawling. It's very spread out. We don't have a lot of tall buildings. We don't have a lot of very crowded areas. We've got a few, but those are kind of few and far between. We have a lot of rural areas. You go over Chapman Mountain towards Scottsboro. You go towards Madison, Harvest area. You can see it on both sides of the city. There's a lot of room and a lot of space. Every time you spread everybody out like that, your cost goes up because you're paying per mile to install that kind of stuff. So I think that's one factor, is just the cost. Two is the federal stimulus. That's kind of dried up. We missed that train. There may or may not be some money remaining, depending on how we want to market it and look at it. But for the most part, we missed our opportunity to really scrounge up that federal money while it was available. So now the cost would be put onto the city, and possibly, but not for sure, onto the taxpayer.
Okay. So it's basically a city cost issue rather than we would have to lawyer up against the Comcast AT&T technology.
Yes, the lawyering up is still a big issue.
Okay.
And that's something that was brought up verbatim to me when I met with the city. Was they wanted to keep hush-hush until they knew what they wanted to do. And they do not want to have these legal battles go on that drain resources out when they could be accomplishing something. So, the cost is a big issue, but legal battles do prohibit what they can do.
You're going up against a company that has more money to dump into lawyers than your city could take in a month of taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're looking at that, and you're looking at the cost of the project being almost one complete year's revenue for the city.
Right.
And that's including taxes, sales, the whole 9 yards. So it's a big project. You're talking a 20 to 25 year loan that you would have to take out.
Right.
And that's daunting, and that's something that no city should just jump at, even if it sounds great, because what ends up happening is you get smaller cities that do that and go in the red, and those ISPs they create fall apart. The infrastructure declines to the point where it's just as bad as if I had dial-up right now and was trying to do this podcast with you.
Tyler, you brought up a good point that I kind of want to follow up on. You were talking about how kind of sprawled out our area is, as far as like pretty much almost anywhere in Madison County you could consider to somewhat kind of be part of Huntsville. Like, how do we tackle those challenges? I mean, like for instance, I'm out in the Harvest Monrovia area, so I've always been kind of in the gray area if I would get this supposed service or not. Like, how do we tackle that challenge?
I think the big issue is making sure the right people get service first. You have to show that the service is viable, and you have to show that we can handle the load that's going to be there if it was fully grown. So the first step has always been public interest. So schools, libraries, those types of things would go first, and connecting the city organizations together. That's really a foundation they can grow on. I'm out towards Newmarket, so I feel your pain on the other side of the county when you're talking about, are we going to get this service? And I've always been adamant, I'm not doing this just so that my house can get fiber, and then once I've got it, haha, too bad, I hope everybody else, has fun. I think the service is viable in this market, especially with the way Huntsville's growing. What's probably going to happen is there's going to have to be some investment and long-term payback, especially when you look at the other benefits besides just faster internet in these areas.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up, guys, like I want to hear each of your scenarios for how this could ideally play out. Like, what's the next step? Where do we want to be at? And what kind of time frame can we realistically expect for that to be in?
Sharon, you want to go first?
Nope.
Fair enough. Okay. Time frame. The city has said they're going to start taking RFPs in January. Most likely there won't be anybody to submit a bid before the end of the spring. I could be wrong. I'm trying to keep track of it, but it's probably going to be a few months at least. There is some help. The city had the broadband group, which is the Las Vegas company, come in and do their own report on feasibility of fiber in Huntsville. So that will help any companies that do want to come in and make a bid. I would expect proposals to start coming in towards the summertime of 2015. In the meantime, my group, at least, will continue to push for a public option, possibly to come in and bid alongside private industry for the infrastructure only, to give the city something that's nearby but separated. There's a conflict of interest there that we have to be careful of. So if you want a public option, you have to make sure it's done in such a way that there's a fair market. That's a big thing, especially in the South. It's fair, equal market. A lot of people don't want monopolies, especially government monopolies. So that's a thing we have to keep watching. The end goal is to hope that by the end of 2015, we have an entity in place that is beginning to roll out fiber infrastructure, go online in 2016. That's the goal I set when I started Launch Fiber, was a 2016 rollout. That's still what I'm pushing for, and we'll continue to push for through all of 2015. And to get the first businesses, schools, and customers online by the end of 2016.
Awesome. So, Taryn, let's approach this from a user's perspective for your answer on that type of question. I know, for example, you enjoy doing a lot of video game streaming, and for anybody unaware, that has become like a huge multi-million-dollar business.
Multi-billion-dollar business.
Billion, excuse me. So, how could Huntsville be put on the map from a user's or business perspective if we had this type of internet and this type of opportunity?
I mean, users and business especially. I mean, think about how much tech comes in and out of this area. for example, Chattanooga's had a lot of startups come up in the 3D printing area. And that sort of thing, you require monstrous amount of bandwidth because there's these 3D models that you get sent in that are gigabytes, just enormous. And the ability to get those in quickly, cheaply, start printing them, or get models sent out and all that, it takes a lot of bandwidth. Like, you just can't do that in the area right now. So, and even in, I mean, home-end users, how often do you have to deal with Netflix lagging and things like that? There's a lot of convenience things involved with that. But I don't know. I mean, the biggest thing is just trying to get involved right now. To push the city government to do something that makes sense for the users rather than for a company that has nothing to do with the area, right? I mean, Huntsville's been it has been a lot about local things, like the local scene, the local businesses, things like that, buy local, that whole movement, and making sure that this sort of thing doesn't get sold out to someone that, you know, they're just making dollars off this and that's it, and we end up with a crappy product.
That's a good point, that we shouldn't become too introverted, but also have business and communications that reach outside of the area as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and just making sure that you're involved in the discussion however you can, so that you're not stuck with, you know, Comcast giving you Nashville-style data caps, like what they have. So
that's a good point, because, like, you know, we're talking about, you know, you're mentioning how we could have better communication with outside of the town, how we can have better business with outside of the town. We have tons of businesses here who are doing, like, international business.
Yep.
That could help, you know, in all literalness, however you say that, put Huntsville bigger on the map. I mean, we already are. We've built the Saturn V rocket here. We've had a lot of cool stuff here that we're pretty well known for. But we aren't exactly the Silicon Valley that we sometimes like to promote ourselves as.
Right.
If we did have that type of internet, we would see a better springboard, somewhat like there has been in Austin. I think Austin, Texas is a perfect example to compare ourselves as, because about 15, 20 years ago, they were roughly in the same spot as us. But they had a lot of tech move in, they've had Google Fiber move in, they've had better access, a lot more influencers come in because of that. And now, you know, I mean, they've had South by Southwest, they've had a lot of video game developers, they've had a lot of tech companies. It isn't just Dell building computers in town, it's a lot of innovation. And I think there's no argument from anybody. That's what we'd like to see here in town. So I'll tell you what, guys, let's end this on a positive note, and let me hear from you guys. What is a call to action? What is it that people in town could do to help move this process along?
From my point of view, is continue to talk about the issue. Feedback, you know, send me. I'm sure Daniel's going to put my Launch Fiber email up on the video. Send me emails. Feel free to reach out to me. Reach out to the city. Reach out to your local representative. Each area in Madison County has a representative in the Chamber of Commerce and has a representative with the city and with the county boards of, you know, commission. So reach out, talk to your local, your ISP right now. Tell them how you feel about their service. Tell them that if there was a different option, you would pay for it if you would. Really, just keep the issue in the forefront of your mind as we move forward. And every time we make a different step, be positive. The thing that will stop us the most is the negativity. Looking and saying we've already screwed up before we've even begun. That just is going to make people that are in charge go, okay, well obviously they don't want this. So and that's what part of my job is to make sure that leadership knows that the people want an option that is best for them. And we have to come about it in a smart way. So reach out to me, reach out to your local representatives, state government, federal government, and keep talking about the issue, because this is something that we've got to drive to completion.
Very cool. Any last thoughts from you, Terry?
Yeah, just, I mean, if you hear something that you don't like, instead of raising your pitchforks, try and propose something that isn't, you know, why did we elect you? You know, like give turn anything that you don't hear into a better idea, instead of just getting angry, as Tyler said. That's the big thing. Get involved, go out, and, Tyler, are there going to be any public hearings about this, anything like that, so that we can bring people to talk about this?
I'm trying to organize an AMA on Reddit with some members from the city and from the utility. I really want to make it an open discussion. I'll be there helping moderate it. Try and bring in Huntsville Utilities, bring in some staff members from the city, and really sit down and answer the tough questions. There was a news article that came out a couple days ago that tried to do that a little bit, and it did. You did kind of get some answers, but still leaves a lot of unknowns in the air. So I'm going to try and get that set up.
I mean, okay, there's a lot of the younger generation who that will work for. What about the people that don't do the Reddits? There is a lot of people in Huntsville that have never even heard of the site or don't partake.
I totally agree. The biggest issue is trying to reach those people, especially because the service is less marketable.
Right.
What part of my job has been is to reach out to those businesses, to those members of our community, and really show the benefits aside from just faster internet speed. And that's something I'm going to continue doing with my group and my outreach network. I think things like the State of the City address and having the mayor come out and really get in front of the camera with local news agencies and really sit down and say, this is what we're going towards. Those are big steps. The State of the City address was a big step for us because a lot of people have heard for the first time about gigabit fiber coming to Huntsville. And It really stirred the pot with people, both the good and bad. So I think more of those kind of events is something I'm going to try and set up, get people in front of cameras, get them on the news, get them in print, and really let the answers be told in a way that everybody can digest them.
Well, listen, guys, I think we've done a lot to kind of smooth out everybody's fears on this news that we've had in the past week. Part of what we're doing here is what we hope that we can continually do with faster internet here in town and bring out this message to everybody. If there is news in the future, we might kind of come back together again if you guys are up for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sure. So for everybody who tuned in today, we want to thank you. I want to thank Geek Out Huntsville for helping us co-host this. And like these guys were talking about, we encourage you to stay informed on this issue. AL.com and the Huntsville Times have seemed to follow it pretty well. I would also, like these guys talked about, suggest that you follow the Huntsville subreddit at reddit.com/r/Huntsville, Alabama. And it seems every time there's some bit of news or an idea or some kind of open forum, somebody posts something there. So that's a pretty good place to keep in touch there. And like I said, just AL.com, they're pretty good about keeping in touch with it too. So anyway, we want to, again, thank Geek Out Huntsville and thank Tyler for coming on. Tyler, thank you so much for putting this in everybody's minds and pushing this issue forward. I think everybody in town has you to thank for getting us to this point, man.
I've never really did it for the recognition, so it's kind of still new to me, but I'm glad that it's now in the forefront of people's minds when they think about internet in Huntsville and Madison County, and I'm really glad that we get to keep pushing forward and see something change. So it really makes me glad to see the issue really come into the light. I'm glad to keep doing it.
Very cool. All right, so we'll end here. We'll still be broadcasting for a second, but this is the point in which we'll cut off the edited video that we'll publish this week. But yeah, hey, thanks again, guys. I know this was short notice just getting this together in a couple of days, but after the news came out Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, I wanted to put something like this together so we could at least partially, I was a little selfish. I wanted to calm down my fears because I saw it at first, and I was one of these guys that was like, holy crap, this is not good.
Yeah, the knee-jerk reaction for me was the same, oh man, they're really trying to go private. But after I talked to some people and thought about it for a minute, I really kind of saw the pros of the decision, which is, hey, let's do something that pleases everybody, which is buy more time for us and gets private industry from filing lawsuits against us for being a government monopoly.
Yeah. What I want to do with this, if we continue doing this in the future, if some other news pops up, is have a place where we can have informed discussion, like a little bit of the opinion, a little bit of the knee-jerk, because I think in some cases that is helpful, because like a little bit of criticism, a little bit of looking at it from a different perspective, I think that keeps us realistic. But at the same time, like what you were talking about, like as far as like everybody keeping an open dialogue and making sure that we stay positive and optimistic about it, that's super important. But yeah, I think I'll keep in touch with you guys. We should check in January after the New Year's once the RFP has gone out and just kind of keep this discussion going, because one of my hopes with this is to make sure that people with the news, with city government, and other people who are just kind of like us and interested can be involved in this. Maybe we can invite them on to be on the show if they have something to say or ask you questions or ask the city questions or whatever.
It was a little short notice for Harrison to come on for us, but I do have some really good contacts. I have some people that work in the industry doing data center management.
Very cool.
So that's another thing we're looking at as an aside from Gigabit is bringing a data center to Huntsville.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's plan initially.
That's the response I get.
Okay. Let's plan on initially on just ballparking it right now. We'll do something the first or second week of January, and
I will be gone until the 11th. So.
Okay. Well, let's do it when you get back then.
Yeah. The second week would be good because finals.
Oh yeah.
I would just say that we definitely, if there's any news, I think the big point of this was trying to get immediate responses from people that are directly involved with this, like as soon as the news hit. And so I think maybe even getting a quicker one next time might be even better. So I would understand why the
problem I have is, and it's not at fault of them, but like Channel 19 or AL.com, they report just kind of the facts as presented by them, as presented to them, with not a lot of research on it, which I understand they have to get the story out as soon as it hits, because that's first and foremost the most important thing in the day of the internet. It's not like you can stop the presses like you could back in the 20s or whatever. But like, I feel like the public isn't necessarily being informed on all the factors or all of the context as well as they could be.
David Kuhnbrock from WHT did a 3-part series with me a couple months ago.
Yes, I saw that. I remember that now. Yeah, you're right.
That was a pretty good explanation of why, when, cost. I thought that explained it fairly well. I would like to do something like that once the bids start coming in.
Yeah.
A little bit off the record, I'm working with one of the...
Hold on, before we go off the record.
We're still broadcasting.
Yeah, can we not broadcast right now if we're talking off record?
Okay. Well, we still do have 5 viewers still tuned in for our kind of like after show or whatever. You guys have anything you want to add before you go offline?
Not really.
Thanks for watching and being supportive, or even criticisms are welcome.
Yes, please.
I am not perfect at this. This is my first really big, venture into into any kind of public domain like this. So it's been a lot of fun, really getting my face out there and meeting with people and getting a chance to really talk about the issue and learn, because a lot of this stuff I didn't know. When I started this, Huntsville ranked 258 out of 374 cities nationwide in download speed, 242nd out of 374 in wireline fiber technologies available.
For what we bill ourselves as, that's just embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. And when I really started sitting down with special interest groups, the question came up, what are we now? Yeah, we're the Rocket City. We say that, and yes, it helps now that the SLS program is back in Huntsville. But what's our real identity, Huntsville? Are we this Silicon Valley mecca where people can transition to and come have a southern high technology atmosphere, or are we this rocket city? Are we a military industrial complex city that has jets and planes and all this other stuff that's in Huntsville? What's our true identity? And I really wanted to be a part of that to make the community better, because I live here and I want to live here for a long time. So
we're closer than ever. It's just like sometimes it seems that when you're close to your goal, sometimes the floor can just move out from under you. So hopefully, by keeping the discussion up and like keeping people informed and bringing these kind of questions out, I'm hoping we can keep us on the right track.
Yeah, me too.
Well, listen, thank you everybody for tuning in, and again, thanks to Geek Out Huntsville for helping us promote. And sounds like we'll do this again in early January, or if some other news comes out. So hopefully, we'll see you again. Thanks, guys.